the same time, it was somebody else's content. Yeah. And I always build my own brand at some point.
Are you an entrepreneur, consultant, content marketer, or business professional looking to take your knowledge and skills to the next level? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Content Marketing Lounge with your host, Nathan Collier.
I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I have for many years. Podcasts, audiobooks. It's just kind of what I do when I'm doing chores or when I'm out, exercising or anything like that. And I think that some podcasts they start from scratch and they have to kind of build their community from nothing. And I'm really lucky in that I already had you guys. I had the Facebook group. I had the community of people who are already engaged and already already connected, already talking about this thing we call content marketing. And so I knew that my podcast would be an extension of that. And today is a wonderful example of how that is playing out in my life. I got the opportunity to talk to Salma Jafri for about an hour, and I'm going to share that interview with you here in just a moment. What I love about Salma is she totally brings it. And not only that, she tells you and me all kinds of stuff that you need to know about doing YouTube videos, which, people ask me, what are should I be on Twitter? Or should I be on Pinterest? Should I be on LinkedIn? Like, where should I be focusing my efforts? And the first answer to that is wherever your audience is, that's where you need to be. But if you got to kind of narrow down or pick one of several options, I really like YouTube and I really like Facebook groups as two places where there's a lot going on, and you can get a lot done without having to invest too much time or energy if you do it right. And so, I've been doing the Facebook group. That's kind of been my thing. And Salma has been doing YouTube videos. And, together we had just a great conversation about everything it means to build an audience in those two places. And she totally challenged me. So you'll hear that later on in the show. And I'm going to have to do more videos because Salma says I have to. With that, let's get into it. This is me and Salma Jafri talking about public speaking, about the speaker life, and about everything you need to know about launching videos on YouTube. How did you become so good at communicating?
Oh, wow. Okay. So right off the bat, I think you have discovered the secret sauce. So it's, I was actually having this conversation with another marketer, and we were discussing how communication and being a good communicator is the crux of it all, really. Any marketing, anything you're doing right now to build up your business, it all comes down to how clearly you can communicate your ideas, how clearly people can understand your ideas. And I think so I guess I have an unfair advantage in that it's probably in my genes, because my husband is like the more creative side, and I'm like more logical. If A, then B, therefore C, kind of a person. So I'm always logical and rational, and I try to make sense of everything. And so my communication style is always that, okay, I reverse engineer everything. If it's something I'm writing or creating or a video I'm making, what benefit do I want to communicate? Who is the audience, and how can I reverse engineer that and make sure that it, makes sense to the person that I'm talking to. Right. So, yeah.
I had a client once who told me, so my primary skill has always been writing, but she told me like one day that my superpower, at least she thought, was communicating complex ideas in simple language. And I feel like you're very good at that, and I think we might share that.
Thank you. That is such a huge compliment. I'm so flattered.
I've never forgotten that line. Like, it's something that I, you know what I mean? It's like that warms the heart of a marketer, right?
And it's kind of hard to do sometimes, because if you're like a little further along in the journey, you tend to speak from where you are right now. But then when you put yourself back in your audience's shoes, so to speak, you're like, okay, they're not there yet. So how can I simplify this without dumbing it down?
Right.
So it's an art.
That's the curse of knowledge, if you want to Google that. So you studied communications at some point in your career?
I did. I did my MBA in marketing, and I guess I learned more about communication than the 4 Ps itself.
So everybody who's been through a formal marketing program, myself included, knows what you're talking about. That's the old-fashioned brand marketing model of that they teach you in school. So you went from doing that to doing a series of marketing and communication jobs, right?
Right. So I worked for 9 years in the corporate sector, 9 to 5, cubicle friendly. So my first job was with Deloitte Consulting,
Yeah.
Which I did for about a year. And then I switched over to a software house and did marketing communication for them. And then my third job was for an e-learning company based in Austin. It's called 360 Training, where I developed instructional design and content development programs for their e-learning modules. And I think in 2008 is when I left all of that. I had my first child, and I started to work online after that.
Oh, so it was when you had your first child. That was what spurred the leave from corporate America. I was going to ask you, because that career path you just described is one that many people would think of as sort of a dream path, starting at Deloitte.
It was heady and fun, but once I had a baby, there was no way I was going to leave her. And I had to quickly start strategizing about what are my options here. And so I actually didn't do anything much for the first 9 months after having her, except just be a mom. But then I knew I wanted to get back to work. So I actually started with freelance writing, because it was just really it was an easy in. It was easy to break into freelance writing. Got a couple of clients online, started working with them. I actually built an entire team of 5 members in my team. And we used to do these projects for LinkedIn. We did projects for Dell. And so it was fun, but at the same time, it was somebody else's content. Yeah. And I always built my own brand at some point. So that started to happen. I mean, it was a very gradual transition, side hustle, if you want to call it. But I think I made the switch fully after my second child in 2012.
Interesting. So you're working in the corporate world, and then you start to work for yourself and you do freelance writing. How does that then translate into what you're doing today, which is what I see, which is being a rock star on YouTube and traveling the world as a speaker?
So it's well, it's not as glamorous as it sounds. That's one myth dispelled right there, hopefully. I guess it was a natural trajectory for me, because my secret ambition was always to be on TV as a newscaster.
Oh, interesting.
I wanted to be a TV anchor, and I thought reading the news was like the way to go. Until I grew up and realized that it's so negative. The news is so negative, and do I really want to be surrounded by so much negativity every single day in my life? And I realized that no, I don't. And the answer became YouTube, because it's like, okay, I get a TV channel. I get to talk about what I want to. I get to showcase my expertise in whatever opinions I have around, subject matters that are important to me. But before YouTube, I actually started as a content marketer. So when I was working in the e-learning company, I came across a blog which sold me on their software. And that introduced me to the power of blogging. I mean, I sold my company. They sent me on a training to New York City to learn more, and then we bought that software. And I realized that kind of organic marketing, which is more pull-oriented than push,
right.
It just opened my eyes to a new way of doing business. And this was way back in 2005. I don't think the term content marketing was even trending at that point.
2007. So Joe Pulizzi he started using that term when he was, I forget the name of his agency up in Cleveland. At that point, he was still working in-house.
I've done the Google Trends analysis. 2005, it wasn't even on the map.
Yeah, it's 2007, 2008 is when it starts to take off. There's a great story. Joe Pulizzi was on a webinar with he was like a guest on the webinar, just like an attendee. And on the webinar are all the famous people, right? So all the famous people that we know now. And he asked a question about content marketing, and that became kind of his in his first interaction with as being somebody who got that term content marketing into the flow of the marketing world. So I believe that was 2008, if my memory serves.
I'm going to trust you on that one. But what happened essentially was that after I was sold on this software through a blog and through following that blog consistently, and that blog was making my work better. And then I read a post in Copy Blogger a few years later. I think it was around 2009 when I read this blog post on Copy Blogger. And the title was very enticing. It was How to Get 6,142 Subscribers to Your Blog, or something like that, right? So I read that, and it was a case study on the very blog that sold that software to me. And
Interesting.
I was like, whoa,
Very
full circle.
interesting.
So, I mean, it was like a moment. It was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to be able to write powerful blogs that are, and I always hated advertising. So it was a very natural pull for me. When I was studying marketing in school, in college, I always disliked the push module of advertising, how it's interruptive and how it, just is trying to sell to you all the time versus the content marketing model of, okay, you do a search for something that you really want and need, and you gradually want to know more about that company and that product and that person. So
yeah,
it was natural.
Yeah, that's awesome. I find it really interesting that you had your initial thought was, I'll go into journalism, but you found journalism to be a kind of a place where a lot of negative energy is, for lack of a better term. So my first job was as a journalist, and I worked for a newspaper out in California. And what you learn when you so there's this sort of noble ethic to journalists, right? Like when you're in journalism school, everybody's going to be, the person who saves the world from evildoers. And what happens is you get into a newspaper anyway, and you learn. I worked in sports, so for me it wasn't quite as bad, but I was right next to the newsroom, and so I learned pretty quickly that there's this phrase: "If it bleeds, it leads." That's what the editors say.
Like controversial journalism, right?
It's just because if something is shocking or controversial, or if somebody had something bad happen to them, that's what people are drawn to, and so that's what gets put at the top of the paper, And so. It's not to say that there aren't journalists out there doing good things, but the regular course of journalism, like the stuff that trends to the top, tends to be, polarizing, sensational, almost like it's that stuff that fuels all that anger that happens online now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a minefield right now to be, ethical in any industry that you choose, really. Yeah. But I hear you. So there were a lot of parallels at that point. And then, the transition to video happened because my husband runs a production house, a video production house. And I was like, okay, I've always wanted to do video. You have access to tripods and cameras and all this equipment. Why don't we just started off as a hobby project, really. And I think this was in 2015, so not too long ago. But that's where I was like, okay, you know what? I can get to talk about whatever I want to, but I can write about it, but I can also make videos about it. So let's test this passion thing out. I want to be on camera. That's how that started.
That was, let's see, I'm looking through your channel now. About 2 years ago. So that would have been 2015.
I didn't share my first 10 videos.
I heard that in when I was watching one of your videos, you said that your first attempts at it you weren't happy with the result.
Oh my God, they were so bad. I actually deleted them, and now I wish I had shared them just to show other people that you have to make a lot of bad videos to get to anywhere near, acceptable. But yeah.
What is it about making videos now that you've done it for a couple of years? What is it that you like about it?
I think one of the most fun aspects for me is to be able to do it in a media-rich format. So it allows me to use all of my senses. So if you notice, I'm using my hands, I'm using my body language, I'm using my eyes, I'm using my face. Obviously, I'm using my words. And that, as a marketer and as a communicator, to be able to use all of that to convey your message is powerful versus being able to just use one aspect of your that whole arsenal that you have.
Right.
So I think that's what attracts me the most, but also the feedback, the comments, the learning. Anytime somebody leaves a comment and says, this was helpful, this was valuable, day made, week made.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's the same thing. I know you've started a Facebook group too, and you'll probably confirm this, that one of the things I really like about being the admin of a Facebook group is that I have not found anywhere in life where I get faster feedback, both positive or negative. And I just really like that. I like the community aspect of it.
Yeah, I think I'm learning this from you, because I joined your Facebook group, and I'm in a lot of Facebook groups, but most of them are muted. Yours isn't.
Well, thank you.
It's so interesting. I love it. It's interesting. Every time you post, I see the notification and I want to read it because I know it's going to be something that's going to provoke interesting thoughts.
Yeah.
And that is so rare. So I'm in very few active Facebook groups. So I'm in a lot of them, but I'm active in very few of them. But I love what you said about building a community, because really, when you employ the know, like, trust factor in marketing, part of getting people to know you and like you is for them to have easy access to you, to have them be able to talk to each other as well as you. So it becomes multidimensional in that way. It's not one way. And I think Facebook groups kind of encourage that community aspect. I know there are other places which probably would do a better job as well, because the one thing I don't like about Facebook is its chronological nature.
Yeah. Yep.
Things disappear too fast.
Yep.
And that's kind of, if you want to come to the differences between Facebook and YouTube as a marketing platform, that's one thing I love about YouTube, that it's so search intensive and search driven, that people can find your content and view it days, weeks, months, even years later, and still get value from it.
Yeah, you don't get that in a Facebook group. In order to do that in a Facebook group, I literally go back sometimes a year ago and find some of my best stuff, and I'll upcycle it, to use your term, into a new post in the group, because I know at that point, I've got 1,000 new members who've never seen that before and who would never see it otherwise. So I like personally when I'm talking to people and they're asking me about what are the two channels, or what are the channels that I should be on, and they want to know if they should be on Twitter or Pinterest or whatever. And I always say, like, the two that I like the most are Facebook groups and YouTube. Like, that's where the communities are for me. I think other people have been successful in other places, but at least for people with, like, my kind of personality, that's where it's at for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think for most of this year, I've done a combination of Facebook and YouTube as my main platforms, combined with email. But now, I think in the last month, I've kind of branched out into Instagram as well. And I was always hesitant, because I didn't really understand Instagram too well, and I thought all my pictures were horrible. But then it's so tough to come up with, like, visually appealing,
it really is,
amazing pictures, right? But then I did this interview with somebody who's an Instagram expert, and she was like, use Instagram stories to document your day, and then just put your best picture from that on Instagram. So I've been actually doing that. So anything that's easy and fun to do, I'm like, okay,
all about it. Yeah, that's part of why I like the Facebook groups. Is like I can hit it from my phone.
It's easy and fun. Yeah,
it's so easy to do. Okay, you said a few things in there that I'm gonna go back to, because they're really valuable. And so you said KLT, which is know, like, and trust. Talk more about that for anybody who maybe doesn't have the background that we do about what that means.
Sure. So people talk about marketing funnels all the time, and they talk about all these complicated marketing funnels. My marketing funnel is based on the foundations of content marketing, which is to get people to know you, like you, and trust you, so that they'll eventually love you, buy from you, and refer you.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So, if you want to take the KLT to the next 3 levels. So essentially, that entire funnel just means that first, build brand awareness. That is the know part. So how are people going to get to know you? By being visible. by going where people are having conversations. So it could be Facebook groups or it could be other communities, but find where your audience is already having those communications and be visible and present and adding value there.
Right.
Then the second part becomes like. So how do you get people to like you? And this is always an interesting thing for me, because I think that being likable, first of all, not everyone's going to like you. So you have to accept that. The second thing you have to do is know that if you can find commonalities, if you can find a common thread with somebody, for example, we both, love easy marketing strategies. So that's something we have in common. For somebody else, it could be like, oh, we're both pet owners.
Well, you and me were both parents. Like we've had little conversations about that, you and me in the Facebook group.
Yeah, exactly. And we're working from home.
Yep.
And so becoming likable, I think, is all about finding those areas of your life that you can relate to with other people as well. And so that means that you need to share a little bit about your personality, about your work, your business, your ideas, in a way that other people can relate to them. So that forms the likability tier. And then trust sort of naturally follows from all of that. But then trust is also built upon, for example, what are your clients saying about you? What are people who've come into contact with you, who've bought something from you, who've interacted with you? What are they saying? And let them do your word of mouth marketing for you, and build up that social proof, so to say. So that's what KLT means for me.
Awesome. How does that translate into like your business? Like how does that translate into like revenue streams or sales or things like that for you specifically?
Pretty much directly, because I don't really do advertising. So my KLT funnel is essentially, I use YouTube for brand awareness, which is great because it's driven by search. So it's actually in your control. So you can choose keywords, you can start to rank for them. And when people are searching for those things, they find your videos. And hopefully they binge watch a few videos.
Like I've been doing for the last 24 hours.
But you had an ulterior motive.
I did.
Hopefully they watch them because they're interesting and valuable to them. And then because I add in my blooper reel, I add in outtakes, I put in a lot of my personality into my videos, especially the newer ones. And so hopefully that builds up the likability factor. And then I have, offshoots to where people can get to know more about me. So I'll be either plugging the Facebook group, or I'll be telling them to download something from my email list.
Yeah, I noticed that on your videos. You do a very good job. And this is another thing I was going to ask you about. You have a VET formula. I know that's just part of it. You do a very good job with your calls to action. Like you have everything tied together. There's never a video that just sort of trails off with, come back next week. You've always got a very strong, like, come to my Facebook group or,
Right. Because that's part of like a very intentional strategy to use YouTube for business. When you're using YouTube for business, it's very different from doing it as a lifestyle blogger or a vlogger, for instance.
Right. Because you're making your money off of sales, not ads. Like you're not just trying to drive traffic.
Exactly. No, I'm not interested in getting 1 million subscribers. That's not the goal. The goal is to make sure the right people find the videos, people who are actually interested in the content. And then if they enjoy them, and if they enjoy me, because a large part of it is me as the personal brand, then they're likely to either come in the Facebook group or download something that adds further value. And so now I can reach them directly one-on-one, either on email or inside the group.
Yeah.
So inside the group, I do live trainings. So I'll do a live training inside the group. And like, for example, I just did one on the top 3 things you should know before you start your YouTube channel. And that live training will lead into my mastermind, because now you know the first 3 things, but there are another 17 items to optimize. And I take you step by step through all of those inside my paid mastermind, which is my membership site.
That is so good. I need to do so much better at this. I have like, it's on my board, but sometimes I get lost in my client work and I haven't yet filled the line all the way in, you know what I mean? Like I've got a few things there that are going really great. But I haven't really got the mastermind going. I haven't really filled it all the way in. And you've done such a good job of filling all the boxes so that everything flows into one coherent process the way it really should work.
Yeah, I mean, I think people overcomplicate funnels and systems and things. It could be it needs to be very logical from your audience's perspective. If somebody is watching something, you have to know what they're going to need next.
Yeah.
What are they primed to do after this? Because if you just leave them without any call to action, then they're going to be confused. What do I do next? They'll click on whatever comes up, especially on YouTube. It's the distraction minefield. There's so many amazing videos that are going to come up on the sidebar, and they'll be like, okay, let's watch this, or let's go here, or let's do that.
Right.
So you need to be really clear about, if you enjoyed this, then this is the next step. This is what you need to do next.
So that they do what you want them to do and not what YouTube wants them to do.
Well, it's a balancing act. You want them to stay on YouTube to please the algorithm, so that it will rank your videos higher.
That's true.
But you also want them to come into your personal, business areas that you've set up. So what I try to do is not have too many lead magnets, because I don't want after every video somebody to be jumping off. So I have like a few lead magnets that I recycle over and over again. And if somebody's already downloaded that, then they're not going to be interested.
Yeah.
They're going to watch the next video. So they're going to stay on the platform. Whereas a new person who's hearing about that download for the first time is likely to come on the email list afterwards.
That's very smart. You are right. You do reverse engineer these things. Very, very good. So, okay, so you're doing all these things. You're also doing public speaking, and I enjoy seeing your photos of various airports and planes and things on Facebook and such. I don't know. We've been friends for maybe, I don't know, a year, something like that on Facebook. Maybe not that long. I don't know. But how did you get to do all these speaking gigs?
Right. So I guess I'm kind of weird because I love the stage.
Mm-hmm. And you say you're an introvert.
Yes, I am, because you see, the thing is, I'm more scared of a one-to-one coffee date than I am of being on stage.
Okay.
Do you see
That's
how
fair
that
enough.
works?
I'm with you. Yeah.
So if I'm like sitting across from one person, I'm going to be so nervous, because I don't know what to talk about. What's going to be interesting to them? I hope I don't bore them. I hope they find value. I hope I don't sound too weird, because I can't do small talk to save my life.
Right,
I just cannot do small talk.
I joke with my wife that if you take me anywhere where I have to put a name tag on, I'm just no, I just don't want to go there. Like, I'll speak to that group. I'll be glad to stand behind the podium, but I don't really want to hang out in the audience and mingle. That's just not a core strength of mine.
Right? Yeah. So it completely ties in with an introverted personality, because it's so hard to do one-to-one, like one-on-one conversations with people. But if I get up on stage, then what happens is that everyone who comes to attend or who is a part of that event then has a starting point with me.
Yeah.
And it's so much easier to start conversations with them, because they'll be like, hey, we saw your speech, and what do you think about XYZ point? And then we can get straight into it. And then I love those discussions. And then once we are done discussing whatever the work part of it was, we'll be like, oh, so where are you from? And what do you do? And, what's your life like? And it's such a natural progression to go into the personal details once you have that icebreaker speech done, literally.
Right.
So, and I approach business that way as well. So all of my business contacts, if they've watched a speech, then they get in touch with me, and it's just so much easier to move to, hey, let's friend each other on Facebook now and talk about our kids or whatever.
It's much easier to get into. I mean, you and I have never talked before this conversation here, and yet people, I know when they get on the phone with me, you probably get this too. Like, when people get on the phone with me after being in my Facebook group or reading some of my content or something, they feel, and I've had people tell me this, they say that they feel like they know me. Sorry,
I was just taking a sip of water.
Okay.
But yeah, you're right. You're right, because that's exactly how I felt when I was in your Facebook group. I still am, but you make it very conversational, and you make it like a safe place for everyone to give their opinions without being ostracized for them.
So I'll give people this one specific tip, which is not about public speaking or anything, but for me, my Facebook group became what it became when I made a choice one day to stop trying to impress people. And all I was trying to do was get conversations going. And so I experimented with lots of different types of posts pretty early on to see what would get the most sort of just commentary and discussions. And because that was what I wanted. Like, I just wanted a place where people were talking about what they were doing. Like, I was so tired of being in Facebook groups where everybody was just trying to like out impress everyone. You know what I'm talking about? Like,
I'm probably going to ask you for some advice now that you're inside my Facebook group, how to get more conversations going. Because I mean, Facebook tells me that I have like 800 and something members, but 500 are active or so, which I think is a good enough stat.
That is a very good stat. That's a very good stat. That's
but
very
somehow
impressive.
I want more.
You want more? Yeah. I mean,
I want people to talk to each other.
Compare that to an email list where you're going to get, your standard email list, not the really well done ones, but where you get 20, 30, 40% engagement. Like, you just told me that you have 60, 70% engagement in a Facebook group. I think you're doing pretty good.
I don't know. I mean, these group insights are still kind of hard to read.
That's true.
They tell me this much, but I don't know if that's recurring or new.
That's true.
They don't make a distinction between that. So.
That's true. We got off track. So tell me more about how you got to do speaking gigs, and I'll be glad to tell you more about Facebook groups too.
Okay, so speaking gigs essentially happened because I started locally. And I started, so I did this volunteer work for Google Business Groups for Women. And I was the lead trainer. And it was just a volunteer position I signed up for. And Google gave me some training modules. And they're like, okay, go, train women in our tools. And I started with that. But what happened was most of these training sessions happened in startup incubators and accelerators. And so I was introduced to the startup community early on. The entrepreneurial community, right? And so I started to do these training sessions, and I realized that it was fun. It was a lot of fun for me to do training sessions and have people ask questions and be interested and get value and all of that. And so I started to look for opportunities to apply to a bigger stage to do more such training and speaking. And I think the first one that I applied for was Inbound. And surprisingly, they said yes. And
your first one was Inbound?
My first speaking gig, my first international speaking gig was actually Inbound.
That's amazing.
And I obviously freaked out because they told me that it's going to be like 1,500 people in the room, and I had to fly to Boston, and it was just epic.
So this is 2016.
This is 2016.
Okay.
I made so many mistakes. I was, completely out of my element. I hadn't rehearsed my speech as much as I should have. I was really, really nervous. I mean, all the rookie mistakes you can imagine. But then it got better, obviously, because I learned from that. And then this year, I was actually pretty chill about my speech and, about all of that. And I actually focused more on just having conversations because it's such an epic event. There's so many people there. The conversations are the real value.
Yeah.
Speech is just secondary.
Yeah. Interesting. I've seen that. I've seen your talk, and I wouldn't have guessed that you thought you were over the top nervous. It did seem like you had some travel problems.
Yeah, jet lag. So, yeah, that was a huge big deal for me. It was like I was so sleep deprived. So, yeah, this year I made sure I arrived early.
Well, you pulled it off. You pulled it off wonderfully. I wouldn't have thought that was your first gig, for one, and I wouldn't have thought that you thought you made a bunch of mistakes, but for your first public speaking, it's pretty good.
I have to tell you something that I borrow from my husband. He used to be a bassist for a rock band. And every time they would perform on stage, and if they thought that they forgot some notes to play or if they didn't do well, they'd be like so down on themselves. They'd be like, oh my God, we messed up. And I'm like, what are you guys crazy? The crowd loved it. They don't know you messed up.
Yeah.
If you pretend like everything's fine, the crowd doesn't know anything better. Like they're just there to have a good time.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's how you sort of take, public speaking as well. If you are having a good time up on stage, so is your audience.
Yeah,
and that is really what you owe to them. You owe them that you have a good time so that they're going to have a good time.
Awesome. So you did inbound in 2016. So this is right around the time that you're starting to get some traction with YouTube.
Yeah.
So this is all kind of happening all at once. Do you find that doing public speaking is a lot like doing the videos?
Yes and no. I structure my YouTube videos in a way as though I'm giving a speech, but there isn't that immediate audience reaction
Feedback.
element to
Yeah.
that. I don't know what the person behind the camera is thinking or the person who's watching it is thinking. Whereas on stage, there's like, you immediately know, are people laughing at your jokes? Yes. All right. Awesome. All good. That one landed, you know.
Well, you say that, but I compete in a storytelling contest here in Dayton where I live. And I do that, one, because I like it. But two, because it gives me once a month, like it puts me behind a mic and it forces me to do it, you know? And I feel like that's good practice for me if I ever want to go to inbound and, and give a speech. But what I really enjoy about that context is what you just talked about, is the immediate feedback. Like sometimes I'll say a line and people will laugh and I'm like, oh, that wasn't even a joke line. Like, you know, and sometimes I'll land on a line that I think is going to get laughter and doesn't. And I get that feedback and can kind of adjust in real time. When I've done videos and I haven't published any of them, kind of like you, I always feel weird because I don't know, like I feel like I'm missing some element there.
Oh no, you have to send your videos to me.
Oh geez. Okay.
Go on, hit that publish button and send a link to me. I'll take a look. We're gonna get you started.
I need to just do it. Yeah, this podcast is like starting the podcast is like baby steps, right? Like so.
It's like a softer version.
Cool. So you did inbound, and then you start doing other conferences too?
Yes. So I'm doing Content Marketing Academy soon. And then there are a couple of events in Asia that I'm going to be doing, some smaller events, then also some events for startups and incubators. And I'm also hosting my own video marketing event in December.
Awesome. So you're doing all these things. And when you go speak somewhere, what's your call to action?
So I guess I don't really have like a specific call to action that I use every time. It really depends. I don't like handing out business cards too much. So, I mean, I only actually use business cards for conferences because people ask for them at conferences.
Me too.
But I think one of the big ones that I use is I do like a talk specific lead magnet. And I usually tell people that if you want all of this information in a PDF, or if you want it in a checklist form, or if you want the next version, then I would do a specific lead magnet for that talk. And I would put it up on my website with an easy to remember link. Like for last year's talk, for example, for inbound, I did salmajafri.com/inbound16.
There you go.
So you can go there and you can download the 7-day upcycling plan, which was the topic of the talk as well. So I find that I get, completely quality and very, very relevant people on the list with that.
Yeah.
And there's always a huge jump in numbers after any speech or any conference in my email list.
Yeah,
so I think that's one of my favorite ones.
So then making the link easy to remember is great for your audience. It's also good for you from the stage.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to have that like mind go blank moment.
Yeah, and I'll probably leave that last slide on for a while because people usually like to screenshot things.
Yeah, that's true.
And they just do that and then they can follow up on their own time. So no pressure.
Let me ask you, so going back to Inbound 2016, you applied for Inbound and they accepted you. So what was in your application? What do you think it was that...
It was directly related to YouTube.
Okay.
They wanted to see a video of you speaking to an audience.
And you had those.
Yeah, because of all the talks that I'd done previously with the startups and the incubators, all the training sessions and everything. So I actually just took a 10-minute snippet and sent it to them. And all those talks were, I guess, YouTube sort of prepares me for speaking in general and speaking to a purpose and being able to tell a story in a short amount of time.
Right.
And so that's real. I mean, I think it was a direct correlation.
Interesting. So even though you didn't have like big conference credentials on your resume at that point, like you had all of the fundamental things that they look for, which is you had good value to bring. You had evidence of the fact that you were an engaging speaker through these other clips. You had practice, having done all these YouTube videos. So I guess for anybody who's thinking about, it's for somebody maybe like me who would love to put in an application but just hasn't done it yet. Those are the things we should be thinking about, right?
You summed it up perfectly well. I mean, just show them value and everything else doesn't matter.
Interesting. Okay. Notes from Salma. Okay.
I mean, we tend to overcomplicate stuff, right? We're like, we're not good enough. We don't have the right qualifications yet. We don't have the right brands backing us, or I mean, whatever our internal fears are, we use them to not. We're scared of rejection, right? So we're like, okay, we just won't try because we're not ready yet.
Right.
But what will happen if you try before you're ready? You might be surprised.
Yeah, you'll learn. You'll learn is the answer to that question, and nobody will ever. And when they go back and look at your old videos that are awful, that you were afraid to publish, in both of our cases, they'll think, oh wow, look, they did the work to learn, and they'll think they're great, not awful.
Yeah. So. Yeah, did you just say that off my Instagram? Because that was my last post on Instagram.
No, I didn't. But that's true, isn't it?
It's true. I'm literally reading off Instagram right now. If you cringe while watching your older videos, you're doing it right.
Oh, geez. That
was my last post.
That's true. I heard Pat Flynn from Smart Passive Income. He says he can't even listen to his early podcasts. Like the audio quality and his speaking, he finds them cringeworthy, and yet he's glad he did them. So
absolutely,
I should take a lesson from him and from you. So okay, let me throw some specific tactical questions at you about YouTube. So people out there want to do YouTube, and they say, "But I don't have the right equipment." What do you say?
I say you probably do, and it's in your pocket or your purse,
which is the phone.
So
you have this. So I'm going to link to this video in the description. There's a video that you have, which is of you like progressively like working through your equipment. It's like a 10-minute video or so, and the very first one is you put your phone on a windowsill and you sit in front of a chair, like in front of it.
How basic can you get?
And I'm like, oh my goodness, like that's. Literally anyone has that. You have a window, you have a chair, you have a phone. Guess what? You can do YouTube.
Yep. There you go.
So I'll link to that. And then you sort of progressively walk through, like, if you want better audio, just plug in your phone, or plug in the headphones that came with your phone. If you want something better than that, then, all the way through. Now I guess you had access to a bunch of nicer equipment because of your husband.
Yes. But what happens typically is that, I mean, it's really funny. A lot of DSLR cameras right now don't have the same sharpness of quality that a good phone would do.
The phones have gotten so good.
Phones are so powerful, especially their picture qualities and their video quality is so good right now that I sometimes don't even bother with the DSLR. Sometimes I would just be like, especially shorter videos, which I just make like for my from inside my Facebook group and stuff. The phone is good enough.
There's a video of you from, I think, a couple of weeks ago when you were at Inbound 2017, and you're interviewing Rand, Fishkin, and Geraldine. And I always mess up her name, DeRuiter. And you're just holding your phone, and you're just I can see you in the video, like you're doing audio straight off your phone, right?
Exactly. I recorded that audio straight off the sound recorder that is built into my phone. Like nothing fancy there. And, that's the audio clip that you're hearing in the video as well.
And then somebody it's your husband or a friend or somebody is recording, I assume, on their own phone, right?
Well, okay. So that's where I actually had a GoPro.
GoPro. Somebody was holding that.
Yes. So I just recently realized that a GoPro is great for B-roll footage or for just getting shots, especially at a conference or when you're traveling, because it's so tiny.
They're little, yeah.
It's so small, and it shoots in 4K, and it's I think $300 for the Hero 5. So it's not like one of the higher end DSLR cameras, which would cost you $1,000.
Yep.
So I think it's a great sort of mid to low range option for somebody who's on the go and wants to shoot a lot of videos.
So a GoPro plus your phone in the lobby of a conference center, and you got 15 minutes of gold with two of the more well-known people in the marketing space. So I just don't think that there's a reason not to do it because of technology. I think one of the things you said was if somebody's not doing something because of technology, they're using that as an excuse.
It's usually a bigger fear.
Yeah.
That sort of masks that fear of technology.
I'm a perfect example. My wife has all of the equipment because she's a photographer. So we have soft boxes and DSLR cameras, and we've got the whole thing. And look at me, I have yet to do a YouTube video of the way that I wanted to.
No, because that's overwhelming, Nathan. It's thinking about, how do I set all of this up? And you've already set yourself up for procrastination, because setting all of that up takes time and effort and intent.
Totally.
So if you remove all of that, and somebody asks you, today somebody asks you a question inside your Facebook group, and I challenge you, instead of answering them through a text post, make a short video about it.
Make a video and post that. Okay.
Just your phone and put that.
Okay, the challenge has been made, and I will respond.
Literally the easiest way to start.
People are asking questions in my group all the time, because that's just one of the things that people do in there. And if nobody does, I'll go back to the thread from Tuesday where there are 3 or 4 I know sitting there. I will do that. I will use my phone and I will put it on a windowsill, and I will get natural light and. And the whole thing.
I mean, there's no reason not to. No, you can totally do it.
No, I can do it off my MacBook too. Talk to me about the Wheaty Formula.
So after I did a few videos, and I realized that YouTube gives you a great bit of background to how your videos are performing. So because it's owned by Google, their analytics are very strong. And so what I noticed inside my analytics was that there was a drop-off at around the 2-minute mark in my earlier videos. And that drop-off was always happening when the title was running, the title sequence. And that made me understand that people are getting bored at this point. They're dropping off. They're not watching because I'm not getting into the content early enough. And so that made me start to think about how to structure my videos in a way that I do have my branding in there, but I also give value as soon as possible, like within the first minute if possible. And so that led to me developing the Wheaty Formula by watching other YouTubers as well as perfecting my storyboarding. So my Wheaty Formula stands for the Video Engagement Timeline. So how do you keep people engaged? Because that is what YouTube is all about. It ranks videos based on watch time. So the longer people are watching your videos, the better your video is going to perform. And therefore, more people are going to be served that video to see.
Right.
So you really do want to focus on having the maximum amount of people watching till the end. Now, how to do that? So again, I had to reverse engineer that process by thinking, what is one thing I could say right off the bat that would get people to want to stay tuned? So that became the hook. So the first 10 seconds or so is the hook. What is this video about? It can be clickbaity. So if they clicked on a title, it has to make them feel that title is relevant, and that thumbnail and that title and your first words are all congruent. So that's the first step. And then my intro sequence, which is right now actually 10 seconds, and I'm trying to shorten it down actually. I think that's too long. So I'm still experimenting there, which is all my branding and what this channel is about. And then we get into the crux of the content. So I start off by framing the problem. So whatever topic I'm discussing, I spend a minute or two talking about the problem, because I think that getting into solutions too fast sometimes sounds a bit rushed, because you have to make people understand why this is so relevant and why this is such a pain point for them, because that gets them nodding.
Yep.
Every time you say, are you having problems here? Is this your problem? For example, is script writing your problem? Me too. Was it hard for you to use a teleprompter? Me too. You want to get them agreeing with, all of those issues and seeing the big picture of the problem, right?
Yeah.
And then you have to also put in something in the middle, which is my second hook, which is like, okay, I'm going to tell you the solutions, and also stay tuned till the end, because there's a download that you can have, like a checklist or a cheat sheet or something related to this that's going to help you do whatever the promise is. Mm-hmm. So you set it up. So that's what the video engagement timeline is. And then the last section is the solution, where I typically want to have the solution in like bullet points or something that's easy to remember, or do this, then do this, and do this, like step formula.
Right.
And then the lead magnet and the CTA at the end.
The strong call to action at the end. That's interesting. So you go with hook at the beginning, and then talk about amplify the problem. And then a second hook, which is stay tuned to the end.
Or give them a reason why they should
stay to the end, yeah. And then you talk about the solutions, and then you deliver your call to action.
Right.
So simple. So simple. I love it. You worked on that for a while.
I think that around 50 videos in is when I finally understood this. So it took a bit of practice.
It's like that, isn't it? When you listen to somebody who's done something for a while, they come at you with some very simple thing that they've worked out, but it took them a long time to come to that simplicity. I love it. Okay, two more questions.
Yeah.
One is, what are some things that you can do to feel more natural when you're on camera? I know one of the things you have said that I wrote down was smile in the first 7 seconds. Mm-hmm. What else?
So I think that you have to get your energy up before the camera. So people say that the camera adds 10 pounds, right? But I say the camera adds 10x to your personality.
Interesting.
Okay, 10x is, it just does. I mean, if you can just be a little bit animated, that comes across really, really well on camera.
Okay.
Too much, you look like a crazy person.
Okay.
You don't want jazz hands or whatever, right? So you want to have a little bit of animation. You want to have gestures and facial expressions and body language. So in order to get there, your pre-camera routine or your pre-video routine needs to have some level of energy. Like it could be, I don't know, jumping jacks, or having an interesting, stimulating conversation, or just practicing your speech in front of a mirror, mm-hmm. or doing power posing, whatever works for you. But I usually talk to my husband about what I'm going to say. I'm like, is this interesting? Is this interesting to you? What questions would you have here? Am I making any sense? Because I bombard him with help me get this right. No, that was a bad take. I want to do it over again. And then I just get really animated because I'm so intentional about making it valuable that I just get animated about it all, right? So, just have some kind of pre-video routine that gets your energy up.
Okay. I love that. Okay. Anything else?
So I guess another thing that you could do is to practice your speech a little bit, because it's tough, because you're like, how do I memorize what I want to say? And if you have zero idea, then you could get a little rambly and go off point, and
totally
that's going to affect
been there.
So an easy way to do that is have your stuff down in bullet points or chunky paragraphs, and you just remember what each point is about. So if I have 5 points, I just remember the points, and then the rest is you speak extempore without rehearsing or without memorizing anything. Yeah.
And so that way you get it feels natural, but it's also not rambly.
It feels natural. It's more authentic because you're speaking in a very conversational style, because you're actually coming up with it as you say it.
Yeah.
And you could do a couple of takes. That's what YouTube is about, right? You could do recorded videos, and you could edit out whatever is unnecessary or bad or a bad attempt, and go ahead and put that in your blooper reel because people love to see that stuff.
That's true. That is true. A couple of things I wrote down that I've gleaned from various things you said during my YouTube binge in the past 24 hours of Salma Jafri videos. So eye contact with the camera, which is a weird thing for some people, I think.
I think a lot of people say, "Oh, just be natural on camera and like look at the camera." I say the opposite. It's unnatural to talk to a machine.
It is.
Okay, there's nothing natural about it. So when you're talking to a machine, you have to get out of the mindset that you're talking to a machine and substitute a person in front of you. And you have to do this to be able to, like, some people put a picture. Some people just use their imagination, but I just stare at the dot, the camera dot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, there's this person who I'm talking to. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah's right there. She's smiling. She's nodding. She wants this information, and I'm happy to talk to her right now. So that's how I prep. I imagine my, ideal audience member in there, and then just look at the camera. It's harder to do that on a phone, I think, versus the DSLR because the lens is so big. You can sort of focus in the general direction. But in a phone, it's like, don't look at yourself, look at the camera. Don't look at yourself, look at the camera.
Because you're on the screen there, and the dot is to the right. Yeah.
Yeah. It takes practice, but you can do it with practice.
I love that so much because when I write, when I'm doing even just client like blog articles or whatever, when I sit down before I type, I close my eyes and I imagine who's going to be reading this. What is that person's name? Where are they sitting? Are they in the passenger seat of the car? Are they on a subway? Are they in their office? And I try and put myself into that place before I start writing because I just find that it creates a much more engaging style of writing than if I
Isn't it a very powerful visualization?
It really
exercise?
is. Like I down to like closing my eyes and sort of, it's like I do it for 10, 15 seconds of sort of imagining me in that context. Like I'm not imagining them stopping to listen to me. I'm trying to imagine what it would be like if I just kind of came up to them right there, wherever they are. Because that's in function what's happening. But I never thought to do that for video or audio content. And it's a very similar thing.
I think one of the, fears is that video is some kind of new communication method, but it's really not. All the principles that you use in writing or even in podcasting are all applicable to video. I mean, for example, right now, I just stood up because I'm so animated right now. I just stood up off my seat and I'm like standing and doing this podcast not midway, but like towards the end.
Right.
I'm like, so it's just all the things that you would normally do for better communication. They're all still applicable for video.
That's interesting. It's fun. I have your YouTube channel up here, so I have a picture of you, and I've been standing the whole time with my new standing desk that we talked about in my group.
The
last couple of days. It's sitting on a table, but elevated on this little platform that I bought.
Awesome.
But I love that so much, and I think that takes it full circle, right, to what we started with, which is marketing. The foundations of marketing is just being a good communicator.
Wow, that is really full circle.
I think that if you're good at just communicating ideas with people, whatever the context is, and it doesn't matter if you're doing writing or video or audio or podcasts or presentations or one-on-one sales, like those skills translate across all those different mediums.
And I'm actually going to quote Rand Fishkin on this. He said in my interview with him, he said that build empathy with your audience.
Yeah, that's true.
That is a key differentiator. And I think it's so hard for most of us to do that because A, we may not know who our audience is, or B, we just don't know them well enough to build empathy with them. And I think that's where all of these other community building channels, such as Facebook groups and email lists, come into play, where you get to know your audience and then use that in your communication.
Yeah, it makes your content so much better. Excellent. All right, I have one last question for you.
Okay.
If you had one superpower you can choose, what would it be and why?
Oh gosh, I'll say this is the one I wish you'd sent me earlier because I'm gonna have to think. All the business stuff, fine, sure, I can do all the business stuff. Now
It's more fun to ask this question off the cuff because then no one's prepared for it. So,
okay, so I would go with being able to travel more, and because I always want to experiment with a lot of slow travel. I want to be able to live in a different country every few months and be fully immersed in the culture of that place. So I wish I could do that. I don't know if it counts as a superpower or not, but that's something I wish I could do right now.
So you love to be not just like spend a weekend in Boston, but spend 3 months there, and then do it again in, I don't know, somewhere in Africa, South Africa, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I just did this on a tiny little island off the coast of Thailand. I spent a month there, and people were like, "What are you going to do? There's nothing to do there. Like, what are you going to do there for 4 weeks?" And I'm like, "You're not going to understand." I didn't bother explaining, but.
To anyone who's plugged in all the time, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, they were like, okay, whatever, you're just going to go to, how many beaches would you go to? Like, aren't you going to get tired of that, right? I'm like, it's not about the number of beaches. It's about living as a local. I'm going to need time to find out where the best grocery shops are and where the best fish is, where the best Italian restaurant is, and talking to the locals about photography and writing and transport. And I mean, I was best friends with our taxi driver. Yeah. So that kind of stuff is super cool for me, and especially to be able to do it with my family. That's the perk.
I love that so much that I started asking the superpowers question in my as one of the screening questions for my Facebook group recently, just because I wanted something fun. Like, I just wanted something fun to see what people would say. And not everybody, I get like the best answers from that, although a lot of people say flying.
Yeah, okay.
So, which, I would take flying. So.
Yeah, I kind of like airplanes, so I'll stick to airplanes.
Airplanes, yeah.
Yeah.
Salma, this has been awesome.
Yeah, for me as well. Thank you.
Where can people find more about you?
So I would love it if you join my Facebook group, which is Personal Branding with Video.
Mm-hmm. Awesome group.
And maybe Nathan can drop a link there.
I will be glad to.
And also to my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Salma Jafri 76.
Cool. And I'm going to link to that. I'm also going to link to some specific videos I think, if you're listening to this, that you should watch if you're at all interested in what we've been talking about, YouTube videos and all that. So basically just stuff that I saw that I thought was awesome, and I think you should see too. So
it's so nice of you to say that. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Content Marketing Lounge. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit contentmarketinglounge.com or on facebook.com/groups/Content Marketing Lounge. We'll catch you next time.